I'd like to call our Board of Legislators meeting for May 10th to order and ask Legislator Hopkins if she would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father in heaven, I'd like to thank you for the many blessings and opportunities that we have here in Allegheny County. I'd like to ask you to be with us today as we deliberate and do the county's business here as legislators, and ask that you would be with our department heads and employees, those that do the work that we outline here in these chambers, to benefit all of Allegheny County. We thank you for the privilege to serve as we do, the privilege to speak up as we see people doing today against decisions and positions that we take here. And Lord, we thank you for the privilege to be in America where those freedoms are fought so hard for. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Roll call.
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Mrs. Burdick. Here. Mr. Crandall.
Here.
Mr. Curran.
Here.
Mr. Decker.
Here.
Mr. Dibble.
Here.
Mr. Fanton.
Here.
Mr. Graves.
Here.
Mr. Harris. Mr. Havey.
Here.
Mr. Healy.
Here.
Mrs. Hopkins.
Here.
Mr. Ricky.
Here.
Mrs. Root.
Here.
Mr. Stockin.
Here.
14 present, 1 absent. You were provided a copy of the board meeting minutes of April 26th. At this time, we need a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion made by Legislator Dibble, seconded by Legislator Curran. Discussion? All in favor of their approval say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. I'd like to, at this time, suspend our regular board meeting and call to order a public hearing. This is for a local law that is authorizing 12 and 13-year-old licensed hunters to hunt deer with a firearm or crossbow during hunting season with the supervision of an adult licensed hunter. And we do have at the rear of the chambers here microphone, and if anyone is here that would like to address the board on this particular local law, if they could come forward to that microphone and give their name and town that they're from or organization they represent, we would be glad to hear from them at this time. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will try to be as succinct as possible.
If we could get your name and town or organization.
My name is Bob Jones.
I knew that, but we need it for the record.
Some days I wonder if I remember that. I am the secretary of the Allegheny County Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs. I am also the secretary-treasurer of the Angelica Conservation Club that was founded in 1947. I also have the president of the Allegheny County Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs with me, Joe Herdman. I just brought him for protection so that I could get into the building. First of all, County Administrator Knapp, Chairman Crandall, Vice Chairman Curran, Majority Leader Healy, and the other members of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today on your proposed local law. I am and have always been a strong proponent of the Second Amendment, basically because you can't hunt without a firearm. The citizens of Allegheny County have a long history of valuing all things outdoors, including the hunting tradition. You have the opportunity today to allow 12 and 13-year-olds the privilege of hunting the white-tailed deer with a firearm and allow those youngsters to enjoy the hunting heritage that is still so strong in our county. Just so we're clear, if the local law is enacted, youngsters will not be in the deer woods by themselves. They must be in the presence of someone who is at least 21 years old and had 3 years of deer hunting experience. And these young hunters, 12 and 13, can only hunt from the ground. They cannot hunt from tree stands. Just another point. You cannot get a hunting license in the state of New York without first taking the hunter education course. That rumor has flown around. These kids are going to be in the woods and we don't like that because they're not even going to take the course. They can't get a license without that course. New York State is one of the last states to allow 12 and 13-year-olds the privilege of hunting deer. This pilot program, along with your local law to opt in, will allow them to hunt deer until 2023, and hopefully continue long after that. On behalf of the Allegheny County Federation of Sportsmen's Clubs, I urge you to please vote in the affirmative on this local law. Again, thank you for allowing me to address you today, and thank you for your service to the people of Allegheny County. I know and understand it is not always an easy job. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address this, the board during this public hearing? Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman. My name is Sean Burdick from Wellsville, New York, and I am the branch president and chairman of the Upper Genesee River National Deer Association. Thank you, Bob, for that great point of view there. I want to first off and say my group completely supports everything that he just said, and I don't want to have to repeat anything. And in being succinct, I'll say that I hope all of the legislature received the letter that I wrote and sent a couple weeks ago. I don't know how many of those letters you might have actually gotten. I urge strongly the rest of my group to send them out as well, just to further support the point of view that we have. The youth hunting is part of a great heritage that we have, and the youth are the future of the conservationists and hunters out in the woods, and I believe it's our duty to help teach them and help get them started on the right path at a very young age. If the county decides to opt in, this would be a great move in the right direction. It would really help the next generation of hunters and conservationists perpetuate our hunting passion. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board at this time for this public hearing? Local law? If not, I will declare the public hearing closed, and we will move forward with the rest of our regular board meeting. We get to the portion in our agenda that is privilege of the floor, and we actually have a fairly busy privilege of the floor. In talking with someone in the rear of the chamber before we began, it looked like everything landed in May. So I think that it's as we come out and spring is here, and it just seemed like a good idea to have May be designated as this month or that month or this week and that week. But we're certainly, as the Board of Legislators, happy that we have the opportunity to discuss some of these things, all very important. One that is not on the agenda, I think the last agenda that was distributed, and sometimes this is a moving target as we enter into our meeting here. Anita Madison, our Director of Office for the Aging, was actually supposed to be here today, and we do have a proclamation that will be read a little later in the program that declares Older Americans Month. But Anita was, she was going to be here, then she couldn't, then she was gonna. So anyways, just before the meeting began, we got word that she could not be with us here at this moment. But she did send a statement or a few words that I said I would share with the legislators and others that are listening. This is from Anita Madison, our Director for Office for the Aging. In tough times, communities find strength in people, and people find strength in their communities. In the past year, we've seen Allegheny County, as friends, neighbors, and businesses, have found new ways to support each other. In our community, older adults are a key source of strength. Through their experiences, successes, and difficulties, they have built resilience that helps them to face new challenges. When communities tap into this, they become stronger as well. Each May, the Administration for Community Living leads the celebration of Older Americans Month. This year's theme is Communities of Strength, recognizing the important role and value that older adults play in fostering strong and resilient communities. Strength is built and shown not only by bold acts, but also small ones of day-to-day life, a conversation shared with a friend, working in the garden, trying a new recipe, or taking time for a cup of tea on a busy day. And when we share these activities with others, even virtually or by telling about the experience later, we help build them resilience as well. This year, the Allegheny County Office for the Aging will celebrate Older Americans Month by encouraging community members to connect and share their experiences. Look for the joy in the everyday. Celebrate small moments and ordinary pleasures by taking time to recognize them. Reach out to neighbors. Even if you can't get together in person right now, you can still connect to others by leaving a small gift on their doorstep or offering to help with outdoor chores. Build new skills. Learning something new allows us to practice overcoming challenges. Share your story. There's a reason storytelling is a time-honored activity. Hearing how others experience the world helps us to grow. Together we can find strength and create a stronger future. When people of different ages, backgrounds, abilities, and talents share experiences through action, story, or service, we help build strong communities, and that's something to celebrate. Please join the Allegheny County Office for the Aging in strengthening our community and celebrating May as Older Americans Month. And not as well delivered as from Anita, but I appreciate her sending that up and me being able to share that with us at this time. And we will have later on, as I said, a proclamation that declares Older Americans Month. Next, and will be first on your agenda, is our Sheriff, Rick Whitney, and our Sheriff is here to talk about Police Officer Week and Peace Officer Memorial Day, and I'd like to invite the Sheriff forward. And Sheriff, the floor is yours. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the board for letting me speak today. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed a proclamation which designated May 15th as Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the week in which that day falls is Police Week. In celebration of National Police Week, I'd like to encourage everyone to take the time to recognize our local law enforcement officers. These officers face many unknown risks and challenges, and their sacrifice and service is often taken for granted. Last year in the United States, 128 officers lost their lives in the line of duty, with another 234 who lost their lives after contracting COVID-19 while performing their official duties. That's a total of 362 lives lost, 233 men and 29 women, with an average age of 49 and an average tour of duty of 18 years. 21 of those deaths were in New York State. So far in 2021, there have been 119 line of duty deaths, 109 men and 10 women, with an average age of 50. A total of 5 officers have given their lives while serving and protecting the citizens of Allegheny County. Constable Norman Chalker was shot and beaten to death in the town of Belfast on April 20th, 1910. New York State Troopers Robert Roy and Arnold Rasmussen were shot and killed in the town of Canandaigua on September 27, 1927, while trying to serve a warrant for petty larceny that involved the theft of $6.48 of auto parts. Allegheny County Sheriff's Deputy Derek P. Ward died July 3, 2004, from injuries sustained the previous day when his patrol car was struck by another vehicle. And Corrections Officer Daniel J. Barkley died of a heart attack July 14, 2013, while on duty at the Allegheny County Jail. These men made the ultimate sacrifice to protect and serve the citizens of Allegheny County. Our memorial at the Public Safety Facility reminds all who visit there of the sacrifices made on our behalf. It honors the survivors of those who have made that ultimate sacrifice and will promote appreciation and respect for law enforcement regardless of agency affiliation. In closing, I urge you to show your support and let a deputy, trooper, police officer, conservation officer, or corrections officer know just how much their work means to you. And thank you again for letting me talk today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Sheriff. And I do have a proclamation, and I'd like to share that at this time and give you a copy that you can take and find an appropriate spot for. Whereas by presidential executive order and resolution of the Congress, May 15th of each year is recognized as Peace Officers Memorial Day, honoring all law enforcement officers who have died in the line of duty. And whereas the week in which Peace Officers Memorial Day falls is celebrated as National Police Week, recognizing the important role that law enforcement officers play in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of all citizens. And whereas law enforcement officers perform an essential public service under difficult circumstances, especially today in view of the COVID pandemic and the nation's unrest. And whereas the vast majority of law enforcement officers are selfless public servants who accept, as part of their profession, being exposed to great danger in order to protect the life and property of others. And whereas these dedicated officers deserve to be honored for their willingness to perform that essential public service on behalf of all of our citizens. And whereas the Allegheny County Legislature wishes to acknowledge the difficult job we ask our deputy sheriffs and other police officers to perform, and to thank them for their willingness to do it. And whereas the Allegheny County Legislature recognizes and honors all of those law enforcement officers who over the years have lost their lives in the line of duty. And now, therefore, I, Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, do hereby proclaim and declare May 15th, 2021 as Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the week of May 9th to the 15th, 2021 as Police Officer Week in Allegheny County. Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you so much. At this time, I would like to invite Executive Director Leslie Gooch Chrisman to come forward, and we're going to talk about Community Action Month. And again, we do have a proclamation around that celebration. Leslie, welcome.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just realized how long it's been since I stood up in front of a group of people and talked, so at least more than a year. So I might be a little rusty right now, so forgive me if I stumble. I just wanted to come and talk a little bit today about what your community action does in Allegheny County and how we came to be here. So for those of you who haven't heard this speech from me, which is probably not very many at this point in the game, community action started in 1964 via the proclamation of War on Poverty made by Lyndon B. Johnson as our president. And part of that proclamation, of course, brought forth the Economic Opportunity Act. And part of the Economic Opportunity Act that continues to live on this day, it was the creation of community action agencies throughout the United States. So within about 6 months of that proclamation, there was about 100 community action agencies developed throughout the nation, and currently there's about 1,000. Almost every county in the United States is served by a community action agency. And our mission is, above all else, to decrease the conditions of poverty for those who live in it and work on the causes of poverty, to bring equal opportunity to people who currently may not be receiving the same opportunities as other people. So Accord started, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary next year. So my speech next year will be super long and I'll be all warmed up, so be prepared. We're very excited by that. This past year has been a true, I guess, revelation for all of us that work in community action in terms of what we're really here to do. And part of the reason that the War on Poverty included community action was the insight that you can fight best with local leaders and by understanding your own community and what your community needs, not what Albany says it needs or Washington says it needs, but what do people in Allegheny County say they need. So part of our mission is to make sure that we're talking to people that are actually living in poverty and truly understanding what their needs are and how we can best meet them, while we also engage in conversations with local leaders, government, other service agencies, anybody that has a contribution and a voice in terms of what happens in Allegheny County, we need to engage. Part of what we're directed to do is to complete a full community needs assessment. We do that every 3 years. And we gather information from all sorts of stuff that's already been gathered by other people, like our county health department. And we also do a lot of information gathering ourselves in terms of what is the needs that's really impacting people and how can we bring the resources to our community to best meet those needs. So 2020 was obviously a challenge beyond all other challenges. And I'll be honest in that we're still working very hard to get our head around what it is people do need right now. What kinds of services and opportunities, resources and support can we, as a community action agency serving Allegheny County, do to make sure that we are providing the best use of those resources and getting them where they need to go in a way that actually makes sense to the people that need them. So to do that, we spend a lot of our time engaging in work groups and committees and all sorts of phone calls and conversations with many of you here today. And we also do that by contacting directly the people that we serve and making sure, again, that we are listening to them. Just to give you kind of a scope, we currently have about 130 employees in Allegheny County, about 120, well, about 100 to 100. You think, don't you know how many employees you have? And I don't, because they're hiring people as we speak, I hope and pray. But we usually have about 130 people that work full-time in our agency, providing services across a full spectrum from housing, early education, childcare, domestic violence, business services, etc. I have some of our services guides, and I'll leave them out on the table if anybody would like more detailed information. I just want to give you the sense of how broad our services are and how we can quickly narrow and change those services and kind of adjust depending on what the community might need. A good example of that is when the pandemic hit, we were doing a lot of community food pantry services. So people come to our office if they could, or we would deliver, and they would come into our kind of food choice program where they could go through the food we have available and pick out what would best meet the needs of their family. Well, obviously, once the March hit, we realized that we couldn't do that anymore. So we shifted to, we're going to make you a box of food and put it on our porch, and you can come and pick it up. And we also were able to quickly change gears and become part of the food drive-through food services that some of you have actually volunteered at, that really allowed us to get food out to as many people as possible, and also do that in a safe way. So we've got a lot of challenges ahead of us this year. Again, we're reaching out right now to try to get a better, deeper understanding of what's going on in our community. I'm sure you're all aware of the kind of flood of federal resources that's coming our way. Sometimes we get, the last couple of weeks, we got some resources that we kind of said, we're not so sure we can do this right now. But many of the resources that we're seeing available are things that we can definitely put to use in this community. And we just want to make sure, again, that we're working with every other agency and service in this community, educators, whomever that might be, to do the best that we can with the resources that are afforded to us, most of which are federal money. About 90 to 93% of our budget every year comes from the federal government, either as a direct payment or as a pass-through through the state of New York. And then the rest is state money, and then also we receive funding from various foundations, which surely supported us, as many of our courageous volunteers this past year, in terms of making sure that we, could receive the sources that we were able to take. A good example of that is just for the child care community. We had resources from foundation funding, and obviously we had a lot of money through the CARES federal funding. And I know this number isn't even right today because it changes just about every day, but we've distributed almost $500,000 to the child care providers in Cattaraugus, Allegheny, and Wyoming County to be able to keep them open. A big chunk of that was to serve essential workers, so nurses, doctors, people that work in nursing homes, et cetera, would have child care, and it would be open so that they could get to work. And we continue to do that as we speak right now. That just got extended. So we are looking for trying to get our head around what is going to happen when the rent moratorium goes off. We have lots of resources now that we're not able to use because we have to wait for people to actually be homeless. And they're not homeless because they're not getting evicted. So we're kind of just sitting there waiting for this to come crashing down and making sure that we have the staff and the capacity to meet those needs, and that we understand what those resources are and how that will help the tenants and also the landlords in our community. And we've been reaching out to them as well, just to, like I said, be as ready as we can when things start to happen. So that's a little bit of what we do. I didn't go into a lot about the various services that we offer. It would take me another half hour that I'm sure you'd rather not spend listening to me. But we do have services guides out. I will leave them out on the table. And if at any time anybody has any questions, or you'd like to sit in on a meeting, or you'd like to volunteer at a food drive, or when we fully open back up, maybe sit in a Head Start classroom, we so encourage you to attend any of our events. Appreciate your presence, and also appreciate the support of everyone here, and especially all of our volunteers in Allegheny County. So thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. And, we have, I mentioned when we began, we have several proclamations and presentations here, but couldn't help but think when you were speaking, it's really a great opportunity for not only this board and those that are here to have a little better understanding as to some of the outside groups, if you will, such as yours, and what they do behind the scenes. Your average person really doesn't know or understand how some of the needs get met that are beyond the scope of our services here. And good opportunity, at least, on an annual basis, to come in and have a few minutes and get in front of us and now that we are, we've got millions of people watching this now on the web, so the word gets out there, and that's a good thing. So this proclamation is for Community Action Month, whereas Community Action has made essential contributions to individuals and families across this nation by creating economic opportunities and strengthening communities. And whereas Community Action is a robust state and local force connecting people to life-changing services and creating pathways to prosperity in 99% of all American counties. And whereas Community Action builds and promotes economic stability as an essential aspect of enabling and enhancing stronger communities and stable homes. And whereas Community Action promotes community-wide solutions to challenges throughout our cities, suburbs, and rural areas, and whereas Community Action delivers innovative services and supports that create greater opportunities for family and children to succeed. And whereas Community Action is celebrating 57 years of innovation, impact, and providing proven results for Americans. Now therefore, I, Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, do hereby proclaim May 2021 as Community Action Month here in Allegheny County. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Community Services Executive Director, Dr. Robert Anderson. And I was going to say that Dr. Anderson is here to lighten it up a little bit, but I'm not sure that proclamation and talk about Mental Health Month will. But we certainly look forward to Dr. Anderson. Welcome, and thank you for being here with us. The floor is yours.
Well, when I saw that there were more than just one of us today, I did a quick Google search, isn't that what you're supposed to do? Mm-hmm. To find out how many things are celebrated in May, which is what I was telling Mr. Crandall. I found 45 events that are, and I think some of them are really quite important. There's National Hamburger Month. We wouldn't live without that. I lost my list. That's always good to do. American Cheese Month, which is good for us. So there are, probably my very favorite is National Asparagus Month. Would you all please plant some asparagus? Because you won't reap a harvest for at least 18 months, most likely 2 years. But it is one of the really great vegetables, far better than broccoli. So, all of you, I'm really glad to have the opportunity to come and share a few words with you about mental health. I suspect that you have all heard in the news, read in the papers, whatever, the fact that the pandemic has been very, very stressful, and people are reporting more anxiety, more depression, more mental illness overall. In fact, one of the interesting things is that in January to June of 2019, about 8.2% of the population felt like there was, 28.2% felt like they had depression and anxiety. And in December, on December 9th, in 2020, that had risen to 33.9%. and 42.4% had serious symptoms of anxiety and depression. So it has gone up. It's put a pressure on the mental health system. It's made it more difficult to meet the needs of everybody. And a lot of that is also because of the stress that the workers are experiencing. You know, we got into some pretty comfortable styles of interaction over 50 years where we would talk to people, they'd come in, we'd go out to their homes, we'd do all this stuff face to face, and then all of a sudden we're stuck in an office having to use a telephone, or if you're lucky, being able to use telehealth, use your computer. But it was much more difficult to get the relationship with the people, the trust, where they were willing to discuss with you the things that were going on. When we look at Allegheny County and the services that we have, we need to go to look at, as you may remember, in 1988, Allegheny County chose to contract out all of the services. Prior to 1988, we ran all of the mental health services. And then we put them out to bid, and ARA was the agency that won the bid and has had the bid. Even though they've changed their name to Clarity, they have been the provider since 1988. And we really need to thank them and their directors, their providers that work for them, because, correct me if I'm wrong about the money, Terry, but in 1988, I believe the county's contribution was $282,000. Throughout the time since then, it's only been the last 2 years that it's gone above that, correct? So they have done an excellent job in making sure that they provide services and have kept the costs down. Mental health is probably not the most popular topic. However, the pandemic has made it so that more people do talk about it. It has lost some of its shame. More people experience it, and they're beginning to understand what it's like to be anxious or depressed. So as we move forward, part of what community services is going to try to do is make the services more, not just more available, but more well-known. It seems like there have been occasions when people have had difficulty knowing where to go or where to connect for mental health services. So one of our major goals is to improve a website, be able to get things going so that you can look up in case you should ever need to go someplace just to talk, just to be okay. Again, I'm very appreciative, and Mr. Chairman, it is one of the greatest, I think, privileges that we have in America, that I can come to a board meeting and have the chairman of the board say a prayer that includes helping, assisting, watching over, blessing not only the constituency, but the legislature, and significantly department heads and employees. I think that was a wonderful expression of Americanism, and I appreciate that. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. And National Hamburger Month. You might want to watch it next year. You might get squeezed out. I told you only Dr. Anderson would come up and lighten the Mental Health Month proclamation. But very serious business, and I'm sure that and as we go through and as we have gone through year after year the budget process, and we are reminded that line item has been level, and the challenges haven't been level. They have increased, and certainly, as you pointed out, more so over this last year in ways that really we haven't seen in this country in better than 100 years. And look at how times have changed when with all the social media and ways to if you're feeling depressed, now we have a faster way of getting you the things that depress you. But anyways, for Mental Health Month here in Allegheny County, I would like to share that the proclamation, whereas mental health is part of overall health, and whereas mental health helps to sustain an individual's thought process, relationships, productivity, and ability to adapt to change or face adversity. And whereas mental health adversity affects those abilities and can be life-threatening in nature. And whereas many people experience times of difficulty and stress in their lives and in any given year, and such problems can contribute to onset of mental illness. Whereas it is important to maintain mental health and learn the symptoms of mental health illness in order to get help when it is needed. And whereas every citizen and community can make a difference in helping end the silence and stigma that for too long has surrounded mental health illness and discouraged people from getting help. And whereas public education and civic activities can encourage mental health and help improve the lives of individuals and families affected by mental health. And whereas the Allegheny County Legislature is very proud of the efforts of all the mental health care providers in rendering services to the residents of Allegheny County. Now therefore, I, Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, on behalf of the members of this legislature, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2021 as Mental Health Month in Allegheny County. Thank you.
On your desk is a report of interfund transfers and tax bill corrections approved by the county administrator in April. The Village of Alfred filed a state of emergency due to COVID for the period May 5th through June 4th. We received correspondence from the SPCA thanking the board for its recent donation in memory of former county treasurer James Mulholland. We received a notice of the next Inter-County Association meeting. It's going to be hosted by Schuyler County using a Zoom platform. We received a notice from the Allegheny County Government Internship class regarding a walkathon fundraiser to benefit the Meals on Wheels program that's going to be held 2 weeks from today, and additional information will follow. We received correspondence from the Allegheny County Federation of Sportsmen Club Secretary Robert Jones in support of our local law allowing 12 and 13-year-old licensed hunters to hunt deer with a firearm or crossbow. And Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, hereby reappoint Dwight Mike Healy of Belmont, New York, as the legislative representative on the Greater Allegheny County Chamber of Commerce for a 3-year term commencing May 1st, 2021 and expiring May 1st, 2024. Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, hereby appoints Lois Whitney of Bolivar, New York, as a member of the Citizens Advisory Council to the Office for the Aging for the remainder of a 3-year term commencing May 10th and expiring December 31st, 2023. This appointment is subject to confirmation by the Board of Legislators. Chairman Crandall declared May 9th through the 15th as Police Officer Week and May 15th as Peace Officer Memorial Day in Allegheny County. He also declared May 16th through the 22nd as Emergency Medical Services Week. Whereas emergency medical services are vital public service, and whereas Allegheny County has groups of dedicated emergency medical providers who save lives and reduce disabilities of the critically ill or injured through their training and skills 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And whereas access to high-quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery of those who experience sudden injury or illness. And whereas emergency medical services have taken a major role in pre-hospital care, providing preventative measures, follow-up care, and access to telemedicine. And whereas Allegheny County's emergency medical service system consists of first responders, emergency medical technicians, critical care technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, as well as trained members of the public. And whereas individuals who are part of emergency medical service agency, regardless of whether career or volunteer, undergo hours of specialized training and continuing education to reinforce their life-saving skills and knowledge. Whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Services Week. Now, therefore, Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, hereby proclaims the week of May 16th through the 22nd as Emergency Medical Services Week in Allegheny County. Chairman Crandall also proclaimed May as Older Americans Month. Whereas Allegheny County includes a growing number of older Americans who have built resilience and strength over their lives through successes and difficulties. And whereas Allegheny County benefits when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds are included and encouraged to share their successes and stories of resilience. And whereas Allegheny County recognizes our need to nurture ourselves, reinforce our strength, and continue to thrive in times of both joy and difficulty. And whereas Allegheny County can foster communities of strength by creating opportunities to share stories and learn from each other, engaging older adults through education, recreation, and service, and encouraging people of all ages to celebrate connections and resilience. Now, therefore, Curtis W. Crandall, Chairman of the Allegheny County Board of Legislators, hereby proclaims May 2021 it to be Older Americans Month in Allegheny County. Chairman Crandall also declared May as Community Action Month, and he read that proclamation. And he also declared May as Mental Health Month and read that proclamation.
Resolutions.
Resolution intro number 12421. Adoption of local law intro number 2, 2021, print number 1. A local law authorizing 12 and 13-year-old licensed hunters to hunt deer with a firearm or crossbow during hunting season with the supervision of an adult licensed hunter. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin and seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Legislator Decker?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take this opportunity with this resolution, as well as any others that come before our board and any proposed resolutions. We're glad to see the amount of mail we received on this particular resolution. We've had also verbal comments, but I encourage the public to, if they feel strongly about something, to get in touch with their representatives in the legislature and bring their concerns to the floor. Not only, as I said, on this local law, but any other proposed legislations. It's through the activity of our constituents that we gain knowledge and insight on the information that comes before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Legislator Stockin?
Mr. Chairman, I am in favor of this resolution. We'll vote for it with a high expectation that increasing the number of hunters in the woods will reduce the number of deer on the roads that I have to dodge every year. So, much in favor of this.
Whatever motivates you. Any further discussion? Legislator Healy?
I too support this legislation, and I want to thank everybody that came here today from the Federation, Bob Jones and Mr. Burdick, and for speaking to that during the public hearing. I think it's important that we encourage our youth to do things that are positive for them and something that they can do the rest of their lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions, positions? Are we ready for the question? Roll call.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
And Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 12521, approval of appointment of mortgage tax to tax districts and authorizing warrant therefore. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 12621, authorizing payment to towns and villages from additional mortgage tax fee retainage by county clerk, appropriating funds therefore. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 12721. Approving the 2020 Resource Allocation Plan Agreement with Office of Children and Family Services, providing for appropriation of funds when subcontracts are approved. This resolution is being offered by the Resource Management Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by Legislator Decker and seconded by Legislator Graves. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 12821. Approval of 2020 Office of Children and Family Services subcontract agreements for youth programs, providing program funds, acceptance and appropriation of 2020 municipal youth projects. This resolution is being sponsored by the Resource Management and Ways and Means Committees and has both committees' approval.
Motion is made by Legislator Decker and seconded by Legislator Graves. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins? Yes. Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 12921. A resolution determining that errors exist on the 2021 county and town tax rolls for the town of Birdsville with regard to real property of a taxpayer therein, directing mailing of notice of approval of application for corrected tax rolls, and ordering the town tax collector to correct the tax rolls, providing for chargebacks or credits. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by Legislator Stockin, seconded by Legislator Fanton. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 13021, approval of agreement between the County of Allegheny and Energy Improvement Corporation for the Energize New York Open CPACE financing program. This resolution is being offered by the Planning and Economic Development Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by Legislator Root and seconded by Legislator Barnes. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution intro number 13121, approval of lease of land to Edelweiss Dairy LLC to be used for an agricultural purposes only. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin, seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed.
Resolution, intro number 13221, approval of agreement with outside counsel to assist with the representation of Department of Social Services. This resolution is being offered by the Ways and Means Committee and has committee approval.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin and seconded by legislator Fanton. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer an amendment to this resolution under the resolved number 3, where it reads, "The chairman of the board is authorized." I would like to offer an amendment so it will read that the Social Services Commissioner and the county attorney are authorized to execute.
Motion is made to amend this. Is there a second to that? Motion, or that is seconded by legislator Fanton. Just to read back what that motion entails to amend this, that resolve number 3, we would take out chairman of the board is, and we would replace that with social services commissioner and county attorney are authorized to sign this. Discussion on the amendment. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any discussion on the amended resolution? Legislator Healy?
As I'm reading under the fiscal impact, it says up to $100 an hour, which is reimbursed at a rate of $128.46 an hour. Is that from the Department of Social Services? Is that it comes from the state of New York?
I believe so.
That's would be part of their state revenues, correct?
Correct, and then there's an agreement between the county attorney and the Commissioner of Social Services to be reimbursed for a certain legal rate for each hour.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed. How would you like your audits?
Collectively and by totals, please, sir.
Motion is made by legislator Stockin to have these read collectively and by total, seconded by legislator Fanton. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
General government support, 184,030.83. Education, 100,969. Public safety, 107,408.23. Health, 158,154.46. Bus transportation, 398.40. Economic assistance and opportunity, 711,619.18. Culture and recreation, 6,637.82. Home and community services, 26,209.30. Our general fund totaled 1,295,427.22. Payroll and taxes totaled $1,120,667.03. Our capital funds totaled capital funds totaled $222,362,081. Other funds totaled $378,958.37 for a grand total $3,017,415.43.
Motion to pay the bills made by Legislator Root, seconded by Legislator Havey. Discussion? Legislator Barnes? Legislator Barnes, if you turn your mic on. Thank you.
There we go. And my 3.5 years on the board, I'll keep thinking about why do we have to read off the amounts plus the cents? Why can't they round off to the nearest dollar? It'd make it a lot simpler and
Detail to the penny, Legislator Barnes.
On your taxes, you can round it off.
Tradition. How about that
It
one?
just seems to me to make things a little bit simpler. Just my
you.
comment.
Yeah, thank you. Further questions or comments? Roll call?
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ricky?
Yes.
Mrs. Root?
Yes.
Mr. Stockin?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Aye.
Mrs. Burdick?
Yes.
Mr. Crandall?
Yes.
Mr. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Decker?
Yes.
Mr. Dibble?
Yes.
Mr. Fanton?
Yes.
Mr. Graves?
Yes.
Mr. Havey?
Yes.
14 ayes, 1 absent.
Resolution is passed. Is there anything that you'd like to bring before this board before we adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, as it appears there's no further business to conduct, I move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made by Legislator Graves, seconded by Legislator Curran. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stand adjourned.